I will find my clients whatever they want, but I definitely attract and gravitate towards clients who like things with more character and more personal style and more, stuff that makes it unique, and sort of repel properties and clients who are after big gray boxes. And I just think that the market in general is continuing to move away from that. People are sick of sterility and are really looking for spaces that are warm and interesting and tell a story.
All right. Welcome to the North Fork Experience, the podcast where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals and businesses shaping our communities and industries. I'm your host, Kirk Hayes, and today we have a truly unique guest who brings a discerning eye and a wealth of diverse experience to the real estate world. She's a PA and New Jersey licensed realtor with Space & Company, a certified sommelier, and someone who's design-obsessed and detail-oriented. Please welcome Jessica Hahn.
Hi, Kirk.
So good to have you. Let's dive right into your North Fork experience here today.
Sure.
So Jessica, your tweet-length summary describes you as a discerning curator of wine and real estate. How do these two seemingly different worlds, wine and real estate, intersect to inform your approach to your work, especially with your detail-oriented and design-obsessed nature?
That is a great question. The easy answer is that I was in hospitality before I started real estate. Very common sort of career trajectory when the late hours can't work anymore. A lot of restaurant people turn to real estate. That happened to me during COVID. I was 8.5 months pregnant when the world shut down, got furloughed, and was scheduled to lose my health insurance a week before my due date. So I had to change things really fast. But something I learned in restaurants that has served me incredibly well in real estate is just being able to put out fires whenever they show up. I sort of take that approach into my job and into my life. In terms of how wine and real estate can intersect, I think that in really understanding wine well, especially great wine, there's the ability to dissect different components. So what are the primary notes, secondary notes, tertiary notes? How does the climate where the grapes grew affect the flavor profile of the wine itself? How does the way in which the wine was fermented and aged and harvested, how does that all affect the flavor profile? And in a really great wine, a seasoned taster can discern those different elements. I would say in real estate, there's a similarity in terms of, recognizing how a home was built, right? What are some telltale indicators of quality construction, quality craftsmanship? Who owned this building? How many different times did it change hands? Was this a quick flip by somebody who didn't care, or were there updates made over time as somebody lived in and loved the house? And really, I think very similarly to how when I was in restaurants, I would, try to elevate a guest experience by pairing the right wine, not only for them and their taste, but also for the meal they were having. I think there's a similar discernment to listening to a client say what they're looking for, but then being able to read between the lines and really understand what it is that makes them tick. How are they living? How are they going to live and wanting to live in this next house? And then matching, the area, the layout, and the price range. What types of renovations do they say they want to take on versus are they actually going to be able to take on? There's a lot of reading between the lines and piecing together a picture and paying attention to the little details that make something special.
Yeah, I can see that. You really have to pull out those fine notes in both wine tasting and real estate to really get to the bottom of what someone might like and what they might appreciate in a home that you're trying to pair them with. So I can see how the two can intersect there a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing really in both experiences for me is people don't usually want what they say they want. They usually want something similar, but, I've tasted hundreds, if not thousands of wines. I've been in hundreds, if not thousands of houses. And that repetition, that experience makes me aware of and attuned to different things than your average consumer of either. And so being able to take in the whole picture of what someone says their needs are versus what they say they want, and threading the needle that comes, is the right solution for the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to be able to read those clues that the person's given off and be able to, see between the lines a little bit and really put them in the right experience. And I can see how, that's a really unique way of looking at things for sure. So you shared an incredible client story in your bio. I-95, a flagged property description, and ultimately tarot cards and a direct call to a city VP. What did that experience teach you about the unpredictable nature of real estate and the importance of creative problem solving?
Oh my gosh. I joke that I am really excellent in finding real estate scenarios that no one else has encountered before. Probably 1 out of 5 of the deals I do, it's some like insane situation. And I'll call up my broker and be like, hey, what do I do? Have you ever encountered this before? She'll be like, huh, that's really interesting. No, I've never done it before. And she's been in this for like 30 years, has sold, probably almost $1 billion in real estate. That particular scenario was wild. It was one of my first deals. And like you said, the property abutted I-95. It's in a neighborhood called Port Richmond. It's on the I-5 corridor right above Fishtown, which is one of the hottest neighborhoods in this country right now, quite frankly. So what's cool about it for my client is she can get in at a price point that she could afford, but from the spillover appreciation of Fishtown developing, she's built quite a lot of equity in a short amount of time. I digress. Anyway, the property abutted I-95, and when the property description had not been updated since 5 was built in the 70s, right? So the city had taken 13 feet off of the property by eminent domain and used it to build the highway, but didn't update the city survey. And this was during COVID, so getting a survey updated was took to 12 months. That's a timeline that doesn't work in a 45-day deal. Right. And this was also a scenario that had presented itself. This came up as a part of title search, which was also delayed during COVID. So it was 5 days before closing that we're like, hey, city says we can't close on this deal because the property description doesn't match the title record. And my client, we just went back and forth, tried calling everyone, couldn't get through to anything. And she did. She poured a glass of wine, she lit a candle, pulled some tarot cards. I'm not a tarot person, but she read into them, got the stars aligned in her favor and made a call to the survey, to L&I to speak to the survey department and got through to the VP.
Yeah,
I don't know anyone who's ever reached anyone useful at the survey department. Okay? Getting a hold of the VP is insane. And he basically promised her over the phone, okay, if you promise you won't try to sell this property without getting a new survey done, we will approve this title description and you can move on to the deal. Insane situation.
Yeah, very interesting for sure.
Yeah. And having that as one of my first deals was wild. But I would say that I come across, like I said, probably 1 in every 5 deals I do has some insane component to it. I did a deal this summer where we overcame an $80,000 appraisal gap on a $300,000 property. Pretty substantial. That was
that's substantial.
Yeah, and we figured it out, and 3 weeks later closed the deal. I would say that it sort of speaks to what I was telling you about earlier in terms of being really good at putting out fires. When there is a catastrophe in a deal I'm working on, it gets my undivided attention and I really become very tenacious and single-minded. And I am also incredibly open to creative solutions. It's really reinforced how important it is to think outside the box. And in maybe a little new agey, hokey kind of way that was informed by the tarot cards. It has really instilled in me how powerful the right mindset is in being able to overcome these challenges. So no matter what is going on and no matter how hard or impossible it feels, it is imperative to believe that there is a reachable solution. Don't know what it is in the moment, but to have faith that we can come to a solution that will solve this problem. And in being open-minded and trustful that way, the solution always eventually comes into the path.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's it, is just moving forward and trying to work on that best case solution with the information that you have at hand. And sometimes that information might shift a little bit along the way and you kind of got to change course a little bit. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's just about putting out fires and finding a way to make things go through.
Absolutely.
So you're licensed in both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. What are some of the key differences or unique challenges and opportunities you navigate when working across state lines for your clients?
That's a great question. Easiest thing in the world is working in South Philly because it's my backyard. So as a mom with 2 kids, those deals are always welcome because they make my life easier. That's one big difference. It's just logistics.
Yeah, yep.
In terms of the deal itself, Pennsylvania is a state where all of the documentation required for a transaction is standardized by the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. New Jersey is the wild, wild west. There are, it's funny, the more business I do in New Jersey, the more I'm like, oh, this state really is kind of run by the mob, isn't it?
Uh,
And I grew up in New Jersey, close to where The Sopranos was filmed, so I say that with love in my heart.
Perfect. Yeah.
But, almost in the same way as Italy for centuries and millennia was hard to govern because it's really all these little villages protected by mountains. New
Mm-hmm.
Jersey really operates as all of these little different townships and villages, and there are different standards, both literally and in practice, in every township, both in terms of how people want a deal presented. The closer New York is a lawyer state, Pennsylvania is not. And New Jersey almost acts as two different suburbs, a suburb of New York and a suburb of New Jersey. I think it behaves that way in every single way, but it certainly works that way in real estate, where the closer you are to New York, the more likely there is to be a lawyer involved in the deal. The closer you are to Pennsylvania, the less likely there is to be a lawyer involved in the deal. I actually, a realtor has much more control over the deal in Pennsylvania, right? I'm writing the contracts, I'm calling the terms, I'm negotiating everything, between the other agent and alongside my client. In New Jersey, that role can really be filled in large part by a lawyer. Don't like my clients having to pay additional fees, so I enjoy that less. And some lawyers are really good at keeping the agent in the loop on every discussion or like blind copying them on stuff, and some lawyers are not. And some clients take my advice as to which lawyer to work with, and some clients have their own lawyer that I have no standing relationship with. So there are certain areas in New Jersey that I really love and I think are great investments, and the properties are incredible, but I don't love being an arm's length away from things going on in my deal.
Yeah, I can see how that makes things a little bit more difficult. The more people you get involved like that, it just complicates the process for you in the end, for sure.
Yeah, it just requires a lot more work to make sure that I am on top of all the details and involved in all of the conversations.
Understandable. Yep. So shifting gears a little bit, your eye always gravitates towards original architectural character, hardwood floors, inlays, carved banisters, marble mantles as an example. How does this appreciation for detail and design translate into how you help clients buy or sell properties?
They just don't build them like they used to, Kirk. In everything everywhere. I think for real estate that's especially true, and I think it's especially important because it's the biggest asset that most people buy in their lifetime is a home. If you're lucky and you set up a good investment and you're paying attention to it, you can buy multiple homes and build a portfolio and really create generational wealth. But that's in my mind the sort of things that if you can't get it anymore, either because it's cost prohibitive or the craftsmanship to create it no longer exists, that is incredibly valuable. So I love seeking out those architectural details in properties for my clients because it is inherently something of value. Not in addition to being my taste, it is something that is going to make that property stand out forever and for always, and will make it easier for them to capitalize on the investment in the future, whether they're refining or they're doing a HELOC or they want to sell it down the road. Those types of details, really can make a home really remarkable to live in, and also I think really continuously provide value moving forward.
Yeah, homes like that are always kind of fascinating to me. I live in my small town here. We have a real historical district downtown, and they've done a pretty good job at preserving a lot of the old homes. And I'm always fascinated walking into them. Like if, they always say if the walls could talk and they, the stories that they'd have. But yeah, seeing some of the old attention to detail and architecture in some of those older homes is really impressive. So yeah, I can see how you really value preserving that for your clients and, just to preserve the homes too.
New construction homes now, to get details like that, you're talking $1 million, $2 million, $3 million custom homes, as opposed to in my neighborhood, there are some listings for like $200,000-$300,000, and maybe the house needs some work, but it has carved banisters and contrasting inlays in the hardwood floors, and I always absolutely lose my mind over an original pressed tin ceiling, like stuff that you just can't get anymore, but demonstrates a level of craftsmanship that was involved when the building was originally created.
Absolutely. Yeah, very cool. So you differentiate yourself by being approachable, relatable, detail-oriented, and investment-focused. Can you elaborate on what investment-focused means in your practice, especially for clients who might primarily be looking for a primary residence?
Absolutely. Whether you are buying something as an investment, like as a rental property, or if you are buying your first home, as I just said to you, this is the largest asset that most people ever own in their lifetimes. And so understanding that whether you are choosing to live in it or not, it is a gigantic financial investment, I think is an incredibly important mindset shift, right? That you are not just buying a pretty place to live, but ideally you are buying an asset that is going to give you options that will benefit your future short-term, medium-term, long-term, and if you really play it right, can benefit your children or grandchildren if you choose to have them. And it's the number one tool in this country for creating intergenerational wealth. So teaching clients the tax benefits to home ownership, different ways that they can leverage that asset in the future, and understanding that buying a building, ultimately, you're really buying a business, right? There's like profits and losses and improvements you have to make and all these different tax benefits. So I think that approach is unique in some ways. It's something we really focus on at my brokerage, but I also really think it's very important. We don't teach about home ownership in this country, and it's funny, we teach that America was founded for religious freedoms. That's a piece of it. Another piece of it was that people wanted to own their property free and clear and not have to rent it from the crown.
Yep.
My brother-in-law is from London, and I tease him all the time that in his country, people don't really own their own stuff.
Yeah.
In this country, you own your property free and clear. As long as you pay your taxes on it, no one can take it from you. It is yours. You can do what you want with it. And it's an incredible tool for creating wealth.
Yep.
So, everyone I hear politics aside, right? There's a lot of noise in the ether right now about people complaining about like the 1%ers and how they don't pay any taxes and all these loopholes. It's like, well, yeah, they know how to play the game. So
exactly.
But the game can be played by anyone. You do not have to be in that echelon or in that wealth category to be able to benefit from the same tax codes. They just know they know how to play the game.
Yep,
and so I think it's really important for even someone who's like making $60,000 a year or is buying a $200,000 home to understand that the same rules apply and they can still benefit from all of the advantages of homeownership.
Yep, that's a great point, and it helps having someone like you in their corner that's seen it a little bit, and that experience is just really valuable for people that are first-time home buyers, especially.
Yeah, I think it's really eye-opening for people and also really empowering, right? Because buying your first home, buying any home, it's scary, right? You've like worked really hard, save up some money, or like made some smart decisions that have put some money in your pocket, and like we're talking about signing off a lot of cash, whether it's a small home or a large home, percentage-wise, it's a lot of cash that you're putting down and like waving goodbye to. And I think understanding all the different ways in which, no, this is not just you're not buying a pair of shoes or a car that depreciates the second you drive it off the lot. You're buying an asset, which is the only asset class that outpaces inflation.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I know when I was buying my home, my hand was quivering as I was writing out the check. Like there goes a couple years of work, and hope this works out.
Exactly. And so it's scary. But I really do believe that educating people in all of the, the financial literacy of home ownership helps take away some of those scaries, and is also really empowering to understand why it's a worthwhile investment, even at a large lump sum.
Absolutely. Yep. Perfect. So your personal journey into home ownership started with the duplex that needed total renovation.
Yep.
Giving your unique lens on real estate, how does this personal experience allow you to help your clients reconsider all the paths available to them when it comes to home ownership beyond the traditional single-family purchase?
Great question. Have to start it off with giving a shout out to my husband, who even before we were married was laser focused on getting us a duplex, and I was young and in love, so I was like, whatever, baby.
Yeah.
You think this is a great idea? Cool, me too.
Perfect. Yeah.
I grew up in the house I was born in, and my parents owned that home for 30 years and like never invested in real estate. And so that whole lens was really outside of my experience, and I entered life as an adult really with the white picket fence vision of real estate, right? You buy a home, you live in it forever, you get a, golden retriever and like live a nice, happy, nice life whenever you're ready. My husband really understood it more as an investment. He also has worked in the trade since he was 14. So he was not scared of taking on, the renovation of a 3-story building. He should have been, but he wasn't. So we bought a duplex and gutted it and renovated it ourselves. We did call in, he's a welder by trade, so he did all the plumbing and the general construction he was comfortable with. For, electrical work, we called an electrician. I've got a great electrician. If anyone ever needs an electrician in the Philadelphia area, call me.
Perfect.
Mike's great. But yeah, I think, in a real estate course, you're sort of taught general home construction. But trying to understand the difference between a beam and a joist when you're reading paper, or understanding the layers to how a home is built, is really bizarre to try and do from text, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's really hard to actually wrap your mind around what these terms and processes are from reading. And I say that as someone with a master's in history, right? Like, I love reading, I love books, I think you can learn so much from them. Construction isn't really one of those things. And so having renovated not 1 but 2 units before I even got my realtor's license really gave me such an incredible backbone of knowledge in terms of like the systems of a house, how it's put together. If there's a problem, is it a problem that you should try to handle, or that you should call a handyman for, or that you should call me and get a contractor for, right? There's different levels. Was also really funny. I remember early on, I helped my friend buy a house. It was like my first deal. But I had already renovated 2 buildings, and there were some issues that came up in the house, and we were joking about it. I was like, isn't it so funny when you realize that like a wall is more of a suggestion than anything else, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like we live in stone buildings that are like every wall is made of stone. You realize it's like framing and drywall. Like, you fall into it hard enough, you're gonna have to fix it. So, I do think that experience has given me a unique advantage, both as a realtor and in terms of my ability to serve my clients, right? There's certain things that I see as red flags that I don't know that your average realtor would pick up on, right? So like, for example, in my husband being a welder, he had a business for a while where he was doing metal stairs and handrail. He was fabricating and installing them. And so I would go to new construction homes and I'd feel along the handrail and I could judge the welds, and I would notice whether or not they shaved off the burrs. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's like when you're welding, the sparks sort of create little almost metal dust that sticks onto it, and it's rough. It doesn't feel good. A skilled tradesman is going to take the time to sand that off. Someone who's doing a quick and dirty job is going to skip that step. So like, that is one small component, but to me, it's a red flag in terms of, yeah, sure, maybe this has quartz countertops and a fresh paint job, but like, if this is how they treated the surface, how did they treat behind the walls? So I definitely have found that, I think that falls under attention to detail, and also just my own renovation experience and how it comes to bear in my business and for my clients.
Yeah, very unique that you have an eye for that, and it's very useful to your clients too. I mean, you can see those little things that might get overlooked by some other people and raise those red flags when they need raised. So that's really great. So you paint a vivid picture of your ideal day off in Philly. For example, bar hopping in Fishtown. How does being so deeply connected to the vibrant culture and communities of Philadelphia enhance your understanding of the market and your ability to serve your clients?
Philly is really a market of lots of different microclimates. It's a city of neighborhoods, and they're small neighborhoods and they change quickly. I think having a pulse on that is really important, not only for like what we were talking about, beginning, matching my clients to the right place, but also understanding how to approach a deal in that neighborhood, right? So if it's a hot market, you're treating an offer and a time frame very differently than if it's a market where there's, a more sluggish time frame in terms of how long things are sitting on the market as well. It also helps in terms of understanding when something hits the market, is this at a price point where it's going to move quickly or slowly, right? And having an existing understanding of price points and what's available in those different areas. It comes to bear in a number of different ways, but I just think it's really crucial to be well-rounded in all of the different neighborhoods. What makes them special, what makes them different, how quickly are things moving in that neighborhood, what is a reasonable price point, where are you going to find a unicorn, and what's the right lifestyle based on the neighborhood for any given client.
Yeah, that's one thing I found unique about my time in being in a more urban area. So I come from like a rural area, and everything's pretty homogeneous out here, especially when it comes to real estate. But in those urban areas, just a few miles down the road can really change what you're looking at as far as real estate, especially. And
A couple blocks,
how the market
or
is.
crossing a major intersection.
Yep. Yeah. Just how the market
Another
behaves in
thing.
those areas.
Yeah. Another thing, I said at the beginning of this podcast, I'm a mom. My kid just started kindergarten. And so in the last 18 months, I became hyper aware of the different school catchments.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Having a pulse on that is also incredibly useful to my clients. Not only my buyer clients who want, to be in a good school catchment, but also to my selling clients to understand, like, listen, we have to be paying attention to the catchment zones when we're running comps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in like a mediocre school catchment, it could be that one block over, it's a much better, more desirable catchment. That inherently makes it a problematic comp, right? Someone is going to be willing to pay more money for a house that guarantees them a spot in a good school district
Yep.
than
Absolutely.
not. So that's sort of another like neighborhood component. And not every neighborhood is, you can have one neighborhood and multiple school catchments.
Yep.
So paying attention to those in the city of Philadelphia, paying attention to those catchment maps, can be really important and make a really big difference. I had a very good friend who listed an incredible home not too long ago, and it sat for a while
Really.
because she comped it not paying attention to catchment maps. And it was outside of the school it was in East Passyunk, which is a great neighborhood. I love it. The good school catchment in East Passyunk is Coppin, and this was a block outside of Coppin
Really.
school catchment.
And
so
it really really made a difference. Yeah.
it made a $200,000 difference.
Wow. Yeah. That's hard to wrap my head around from being up in my neck of the woods here. But yeah,
Yeah,
I can
it makes a
see
really
how
big
big of a deal that
difference.
is in your market.
Yep.
Wow. So looking ahead, what key trends or shifts do you anticipate in the Philadelphia and New Jersey real estate markets, especially concerning design and investment or unique property types?
In terms of design, not to toot my own horn, but all of the things that are currently trending and are trending on the horizon for 2026 are things that I have been implementing in my properties since 2021. So I'm really excited that y'all have all caught up and you like the things that I like.
Yeah. Trendsetter. Yeah.
I love a curve in a home. I mean, I think ultimately I like things that relate to what I was saying earlier, where they demonstrate good craftsmanship.
Yep.
So a radius on an island or a peninsula. Also as a parent, if you got kids running around, they're not
Yeah.
in the corner, right? So it's also safer. I really love color in general. I'm at my co-working office right now. I picked the room with dark green. I see we're aligned on that, but deep rich colors, I think, are really personalizing a space generally. We just, during COVID, we were already on the way there, but I just think when everyone was sitting at home watching Joanna and Chip Gaines on HGTV, everyone turned their homes into gray and shiplap and like urban rustic, and it just all was the same and so boring. And I will find my clients whatever they want, but I definitely attract and gravitate towards clients who like things with more character and more personal style and more, stuff that makes it unique and sort of repel properties and clients who are after big gray boxes. And I just think that the market in general is continuing to move away from that. People are sick of sterility and are really looking for spaces that are warm and interesting and tell a story. I'm also over open concept fully.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a living room and a dining room and a kitchen and have those be, you want the spaces to flow. I'm not trying to have, back to the 50s where it was like fully walled off and you had these little doors and like they're completely separate spaces. But I have very strategically placed like half wall that has a curve in it into like a pillar in my home. And so when I walk in the front door, I cannot see dishes in my sink. Cannot tell you what a lifestyle improvement that is from my last home when we were living in the duplex upstairs. You walk in the front door, you turn the corner, and I could see all the dishes in the sink. I also got a much bigger sink for my new house, so that helped.
Yep. Perfect.
But, it's nice to have differentiated areas so that, ultimately You have to remember that these homes are lived in, right? It's one thing
Yep.
when it's for sale and it's being staged or you're building it and everything's perfect. And it's another thing to understand how the home is going to be lived in. And so, what are the different ways that we can think about this property and your quality of life in it, right? Like if you have kids, it's important to have an area that is separate so that if their toys are on the floor, you're not stressed, right? Like
Yep.
what are different ways where we can create segmented areas so that you can enjoy yourself and not walk in your home, which is supposed to be your sanctuary, and instead just be like immediately reminded of all of the, of your second shift.
Everything you need to do. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure it really, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I think I lost you for a
Yeah,
second
we
there, Kirk.
lagged there a little
Yeah.
bit, but yeah, I'm sure it really helps you to go after things that light your fire as well. You're matching a client to this home, but it's nice to to see something that you enjoy too. That you can match the client with.
Absolutely. And I also think that also falls into the category though of knowing what they want better than they do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a recent client who, I mean, they're in their 60s, they've been renting for like 40 years, and they finally decided to buy a home. And they told me the neighborhoods they definitely didn't want to be in. Well, guess where we're under contract in one of those neighborhoods. Because they didn't know, they hadn't been in it in 10 years, so they didn't know what they were talking about. And they had also, once we settled in on that neighborhood, they sent me a bunch of houses that they wanted to see, and we went and saw them, and there was like, the stairs were too steep, or there wasn't quite enough space, there wasn't this, there wasn't that, and then we went to the one that I picked, which hadn't even crossed their radar, but there was a really gorgeous entryway. The current owners had created like pegs for fantastic organization. Like it was also on a like the 2x4 that all the pegs were on. There was wallpaper below and a different painted color above, and their original carved handrail was there. It wasn't a brand new kitchen, but it was a fully functional kitchen. I think the kitchen had been holding it back from other people, had been on the market for a little while, but my clients had been living in an apartment for so long, they didn't need a brand new quartz countertop kitchen. The kitchen they were in had been done in the 80s, and they were like, this was an improvement, right? So it was a combination of the things that I'm attracted to and also understanding the things that they did and didn't care about. Gosh, I think I forgot where I was going with that. But
Yeah, you're okay. Yeah, you certainly have a unique approach there, and it's cool to seeing you get so excited about bringing your own aspects into matching people with homes like that. You can really see your passion come out in it.
listen, I'm not everyone's realtor. Some people do want that like big gray box, or they're gonna wait for the white picket fence, and that's their vision, and that's okay. Maybe we're not a right fit. I will tell you, Kirk, I write into every single contract I sign that this contract may be canceled within 24 hours written notice. I don't want to work with anyone who doesn't want to work with me.
Understandable.
And
Yeah.
especially after working in restaurants for so long, where I had to shuck and jive and yes ma'am and yes sir to all these people that I couldn't stand and that were treating me like,
I'm sure. Yeah.
I love being able to fire a client. I haven't had to do it yet. I've come close twice, but it's very empowering to me to have the potential to say, you know what? This isn't working. This isn't a good fit. We don't feel like we're in alignment here, so we're not going to get you the right outcome. And, no harm, no foul. I wish you well, but this is not the right professional match, and I'm happy to introduce you to somebody else who is.
Yeah, and it's nice having that option too. And I'm sure you probably have some other people in your Rolodex there, so to speak, that you can match them with that fits them a little better.
I mean, it's matchmaking, right? So, there are definitely other agents who would be a better fit for clients like that. Sometimes it's a personality thing, sometimes it's a communication thing, sometimes it's a style thing, but it's the best part for me about owning my own business is I can work with whoever I want, and I don't have to work with anyone that I don't want to. And that is worth everything.
Yep. Has its advantages for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it has its downsides too, right? If everything's going wrong, it's no one else's fault but mine. But yeah, being able to have that kind of control over who I choose to spend my time with is really, really valuable to me.
Yeah, you own it at the end of the day, one way or another, whether good or bad.
Yep, totally.
Perfect. Well, Jessica, this conversation's been incredibly insightful and truly showcases your blend of expertise, passion for design, and client-focused approach. Your Northfork experience offers such a fresh perspective on real estate. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today.
You're very welcome, Kirk. It was a pleasure talking with you. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me.
Before we wrap up, for our listeners in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, who are looking for a realtor like yourself, where can they get in touch with you? Where can they get a hold of you?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram, _Jessica Helen, spelled Helene, Helene. You can also reach me by email at jhahn, HAHN, at spaceandcompany.com, all spelled out, space and company. Or honestly, call me, text me. My number's already everywhere, so whatever. It's 973-495-2269. But don't be fresh. I'm married. My husband's scary, okay?
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. We'll make sure we can include those details in the show notes.
I really appreciate that, Kirk. It was a pleasure talking to you. And for any of your listeners who are looking for real estate advice or even just conversations, I love talking about design. You want to redo your kitchen and you're not sure which way to go, feel free to reach out to me about that sort of thing too. It's my favorite thing to talk about is real estate and design, so I'm always happy to have a conversation.
We will let them know. So that is all for this episode of the North Fork Experience. A huge thank you again to our incredible guest, Jessica Hahn, and thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep experiencing all that our communities have to offer. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Kirk. Bye.